chased validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
There we go. As soon as I seen muted, I was like, bruh. All right. So we got it now. But what I was saying was I had seen Steven's notations when he sent me the message about how they would likely cut the hours. And I believe that, yeah, they're going to be cutting they probably would cut the hours back and restructure their employment options if they were to do the 32-hour situation. So I was going to be giving you a response after the show for that. I did see the the discussion about the nuclear power, and then there was another discussion that had came. Oh, he was talking about the Second Amendment thing, allowing for guns to be more accessible to individuals. So I'm going to be covering those two issues on next Monday's show. And one of the reasons why, one, the nuclear power one is it negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money, or not so much negatively impacts, but it does modify your investment opportunities because we are not a nuclear power country. While we might have some nuclear power plants, we do not have a full nuclear power structure. So the nuclear power enforcement that we would have, if that was to be implemented, would modify, one, the health of the people that live closest to the nuclear power plant, two, the environment that is going to be impacted by the nuclear power plant, three, our investment portfolio, because nuclear power become a stock option that you can invest in America if it isn't already. But then with firearms, you have the purchasing of them, the ownership of them as your constitutional rights, but you also have the price of them, the accessibility of them, whether or not you have to pay tax stamps in order to possess them, registering them, all of this other stuff that costs you money, reporting where you are and where you're going with them, like all of these things that cost you money. So that's why we're going to be talking about that next week, Monday. Now, we are live 7 nights a week, and we do not let the sun rise without going live, but we don't always start on time, and that's why we ask you guys to like and subscribe, hit the notification buttons, and then double check that membership and mash the reaction buttons while you're here on the show, showing support for the show so we can get a lot more people to pay attention to the show, because the algorithm is not always our friend. As y'all seen, YouTube has been acting up over the last few weeks. Michael says, great day out walking the dog, and a 300-pound black bear came running out of the bushes in front of me. Oh, well, in that scenario, you should have had a bunch of women just flock that area, because from what we hear, women choose the bear over man. So, you should have had a bunch of distractions out there. He said, got the portfolio looking lovely, dividends notifications back to back like Drake songs. I told you that you were gonna see that once you started getting all of your once you got your whole portfolio put up there and you start investing in them, they're like weekly, if not daily deposits. If all of them are due on the same week, then you're gonna start getting returns within the same week. But if you've got some at the beginning of the month, some at the end of the month, the whole 17, well, I think you got 19 because you got Erie as well. All of them have different paydays. Even though their ex-dividend dates are close together, they have different paydays. So you'll start seeing multiple notifications like, you just got paid, congratulations. And it's like, damn, the $20 here, $5 here, 75 cents there, depending on how much you put on the stocks. I'm like, shit, I'm getting money. And that feels good to know that you did nothing today for that to happen. It's like a back end deal from a movie actor where they get a little bit of money in the beginning to perform the movie, and then the back end deal, they keep getting paid for the rest of their life for an action that they performed so many years ago. You get a phone call, hey, if you did Jumanji, you got a check. Oh, I didn't know they're still watching that shit. Right? Which actually provides you with a larger quantity of wealth. So now you can see firsthand how, if more money went into that brokerage account, if more money, especially if more money went into the REITs and the BDCs, and you're getting that 20% back, and then you're able to take that 20% and rebalance it into the other ones, you can grow your portfolio faster. And then when you start reaching a point where you can take the dividends and pay bills, or vice versa, invest less into the brokerage account and just use the drip to reinvest into the brokerage account, allowing you to cover more bills more often, you can find yourself in a situation where your brokerage account pays for your standard of living. And when your brokerage account pays for your standard of living, that's the moment where you can retire off of your job, right? Which is one way to reach retirement. It's not the only way. It's just one of the better ways that I think about, because if you have a dividend portfolio coming in, you have a health savings account coming in your younger years, 30, 40 years old, when you're 60, 70 years old, and you're taking, like, for example, you take your dividends out of your brokerage account and put it into your health savings account and build that up. When you reach the 70 years old, 75 years old, and you have health care and you need medication and everything to that effect, you don't have to worry about where you're going to get the money from for that, because you've been putting that money away, right? And if you're taking it out of your brokerage account, put it into your health savings account, you've got some tax advantages there. So between that and paying off your student loans. So if you get a bunch of money off your student loans in August, well, they're probably going to give it to you in October. But if you get a bunch of student loans and then you use those student loans to double down on your brokerage account, when you do get out of college, you'll be paying on your student loans, which has tax advantages on that. And then you'll be with a higher premium by the time you finish paying off all your student loans, where your student loans will be covered. You'll be in a situation where your full $200,000 accessibility for undergrad, which you're probably only going to go through like 70 grand in your 4 year, but it would be in a brokerage account on top of what you were already putting into your brokerage account. And since it would be payment deferred until you got out of school, that's where the best benefits are going to come from for you, because at an average of 15 to 20% return on investment year over year, by the time they do start asking for money back, your principal is going to be so high that you'll be able to pay back twice as much as what they're asking on a regular basis, paying down your student debt faster, boosting your credit score higher, and allowing you for a lot more opportunities. So we're going to be talking about that going forward as well. He says you can't afford to take high risks at a young age. Oh, you can afford to take higher risks at a younger age. Oh yeah, of course. I encourage you to take higher risks at a younger age, but I encourage you to take smart, responsible higher risks at a younger age that is going to benefit your end goal, your 20 or 30 year plan, where you see yourself in 20 or 30 years. And that's why we have the discussions that we have on the show, because, Monday we talk about politics, how it negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money. Today, Tuesdays, we're going to be talking about some financial opportunities, how to make money, save money, invest money, budget money, stuff to that effect. Plenty on that. We're going to be going through all of that today. That's why this little segment is what it is. Then Wednesdays, we give you different countries around the world that you can save and invest in. But then we also have Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, which is self-improvement, personal development, relationship topics, socialization, negotiations, building your brand, raises, promotions, retirement, forced retirement, termination, and ultimately, where the fuck do you see yourself in 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, right? And a Miss America pageant answer is not a good answer. Happy, healthy, stress-free, those are byproducts of your end goal. You have to really think about what your end goal is so that you can figure out what to do to get there. And at a younger age, like Michael said, you can take more higher risks towards that, especially if you have an income subsidizing your situation. You can take higher risks to make a lot more things happen in a shorter period of time, so that by the time you get to 50, 60, 70 years old, that you're $500,000, $1 million, $1.5 million. And if you're living off of the interest, not the principal, you don't have to sell your brokerage account to pay for your standard of living. A lot of the investment opportunities that people offer you is growth, where you have to sell it, pay taxes on it, all this other stuff. You can keep it, not pay taxes on it. And if you pay taxes on it, it's not that much. If a lot of it is tax deferred and you're taking the profits from the principal and paying for your standard of living, that makes a hell of a lot more sense than anything else you can think about. And then if you borrowed against a stone and you're taking the dividends and paying back the loans that you're paying for, likely a tax blanket, you may not have to pay taxes on all the money that you paid and still buy all the things that you want, but it requires you to utilize your money effectively and then only take the risks that you can find the benefits in. So you don't want to take the risk of bailing a homeboy out of jail and hoping that they go to court. That's not taking a positive risk for yourself, because you get no return on that investment. You want to take the type of risk like, well, if I double down on this brokerage account, or if I borrowed against a stone on this brokerage account, then I can make money off of that. Or if I'm going to put more money down on gold and silver, and I can get more assets off of that. Or I'm going to take this and leverage it to go and buy a house, so that I got the house, so that I don't have to pay the rent. Stuff to that effect. You know what I mean? Taking the kind of higher risks towards your long-term satisfaction, your long-term success. Where the worst that could come out of that is somebody tells you, no, you don't qualify. but you still know what you can accomplish because you have already looked for alternatives. Steven said, I'm adding some VOO to play it safe too. Okay. If you get a ETF that is like the S&P 500 or VOO or something like that, like a whole market style scenario, that's satisfactory. There's no issues with that. I don't object to that. It's less volatile. The only problem is that even if you got one that's a dividend paying stock or ETF, the problem is that you're making less money. So you sacrifice fast cash now for long-term security later. The portfolio that I gave you was a fast cash now portfolio where you can rebalance away from the fast cash as you start getting closer to your target goals. So you can put more money down on BDCs, you could put more money down on real estate investment trust right now while you're trying to build your portfolio. Use the massive cash that comes in from that and put it towards all of your safe stocks, right? And then once you've reached a certain quantity, whether it's 20,000, 200,000, and you say, okay, now I'm good. Now you're going to say, well, I don't need those BDCs and real estate investment trusts as much. So I can put less in those and put more somewhere else. And that allows me to have a larger quantity of safe stocks that are producing a smaller quantity of income. But let's say in goal, I want to make $2,000 a month off of this account. Well, if I'm making $2,000 a month off of this account, then that means I'm going to likely need $24,000 a year off of this account. Now, if we're doing just 10%, that means I need at least $250,000 in the brokerage account. Why do I say $250,000 in the brokerage account? Because I'm likely going to probably spend about $10,000 or probably $5,000 or so on taxation. So since I know I'm going to have to pay some money towards taxation, I'm going to have to overshoot my baseline to make sure that I have enough money to cover what I want to cover after I've paid taxes, right? Now, what 10%, you're at $25,000 on $250,000. But at 15%, you're closer to $30,000, right? You're not going to get that 15% with non-real estate investment trust and non BDCs when the stock that are not REITs and BDCs are producing less than 5% return on investment. So the 20% volatility to 15, 18, 19% volatility gives you the higher structure to bring in more capital. And then the 3% for Erie, the 3% for Shell and Chevron and all, that 3% is not a lot of money, but it's a lot of security because you get growth and you get growth and then you get dividend growth, because even though the share price is high, the dividend return actually continues to increase year over year, which means that they'll be giving you more money back on the shares that you're holding, which is benefit for you, right? So you want to get more of those. But right now, while you're starting from nothing to something, you want to put a lot more into it and double it down with like a multiplier. And the multipliers are REITs and BDCs. That's why I advertise. So I'm not going to say that it's a bad move to use VOO. By all means, grab it. You can grab that. You can grab the S&P 500. You can grab whatever you want to grab. Just acknowledging the fact that you're sacrificing the growth for the security, because there's no other way to do it, because the less volatile it is, the less profit you make off of it. The more volatile it is, the more profit you make off of it. That's really all it is. So your risk tolerance versus my risk tolerance are not the same, but what you're willing to let slide so that you have the peace of mind that 30 years from now, this stock is going to be okay. That's the trade-off that you're getting. Versus, I know that over the next 3 to 5 years, I can make a shit ton of money off of these highly volatile stocks because of the way he's turning real estate on its head. Things that used to be done is outlawed now. So REITs are going to be making a whole bunch of money because they're still dealing with the volatility. Michael says, many ways to come up with the end result. That is true, but it really requires for you to decide what the end result is, because you can say less race, right? and we just both take off running. But guess what? We could be running in two separate directions. When you say let's race that way, or let's race this way, or let's race this way, we could take off running and then run until one of us gets exhausted, and the person who's not exhausted wins the race. You can have a race of who can go the furthest, or the race of who can get there the fastest. You have to determine what defines the end goal. Every race has a finish line. You have to create the finish line. And that's what people don't do. People don't create the finish line. They're moving through life knowing that they want an end point if they're not expecting an end point, and they don't even know what the end point looks like, right? He says, but to get there, you gotta play the game of life. It's not just about play. I agree with you. You do have to play the game of life, but you have to also know if you've ever played the game of life. And I know Michael should be familiar with the board Game of Life, because we had the Game of Life, Chutes and Ladders, all this, that, and the other. There was two different directions at the beginning of the game that you could take. And then halfway through the game, midlife crisis happens, and then everybody's life can turn on in. You can go from being broke to being rich, or go from being rich to being broke. You can pass that threshold, stay rich, or pass that threshold, stay broke. And by the time you get to the end of the board game, where you started at and where you finished at is not always the same thing. But the goal in life, in order for you to decide which direction you're going to go, you have to be able to figure out what your end goal is, what your results are supposed to be, in order for you to say, I know exactly where I'm going. And I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know exactly where I want to be at. So let me start building a roadmap. Because if you wanted to travel to the other side of the country, you know which states you want to stop at, and you know which states you don't want to stop at. Me, I'm probably not going to stop in Alabama. Somebody else might have no problem with stopping in Alabama. It's the principle of knowing what you should and should not do versus what you can and cannot do. He said, don't everything in the same basket. That's correct. Do not put everything in the same basket. You want to definitely diversify. Slow and steady wins. Do your homework. Yes. Well, okay. So here's an observation. Slow and steady, meaning don't rush and don't overdo it. But yes, always do your research. However, expediting the results of your brokerage account requires you to just accept a higher difficulty level. So the difference between playing it safe with index funds that are giving you like 1% or 4% return on investment versus playing with REITs and BDCs is the difference between playing the stock market on easy mode versus playing the stock market on hard mode. We're not trying to go to chaos mode because we're not trying to go into Bitcoin, but the fact is that you're taking a larger risk, but you're getting a larger reward as a result. He says, P.S. grab everything, be greedy, as much as you can carry. How you doing, Daniel? Special shout out to Daniel. Mousetrap. Yes, I remember Mousetrap. What's up? Happy Tuesday. And Monopoly. Monopoly actually makes a lot of sense. Monopoly made a lot of sense because you learn how to do things as far as like setting up like rent scenarios, building up your property, stuff to that effect. And that's one of the things that actually makes it really reincorporates like how to make long-term decisions. Because when you go around that board the first time around, you find yourself in a situation where you're buying up everything. Some people actually strategically don't buy anything until the second time around the map. And it's funny how you could, in fact, get in there and win the game without buying up the whole map the first time around. But you could actually buy up the whole map first time around and find yourself with an advantage on everybody else that came behind you if you're the first person to go around the map, right? He says, you have a beginning point and an end. Everything in between is dots. You just connect the dots and you'll get there. Yes, hypothetically and metaphorically, that is true. If you have a beginning point and an end point, you do have the ability to have specific moments in time that are fixed moments in time towards your destination that have to occur. And then you just got to connect the dots along the way. However, when the difference between fate or destiny and goals and desires and dreams is that you can change your destiny or your fate by doing something different. Self-fulfilling prophecies is you subconsciously believing that you deserve to experience certain things and consciously believing that you deserve to be living a certain kind of lifestyle, or consciously believing that you don't deserve better than what you're getting. And then you unintentionally do things that sabotage your own success, like having a really good job and then not putting in the effort for the presentation, having a really good job and not showing up for work on time. No matter what you do, you find a way to end up 15 minutes late for work. Then when you get fired off the good job and now you're working on a bad job, it wasn't in the cards for you. No, you made unintentional, deliberately bad decisions that caused you to lose your job, right? Take somebody who speeds on a regular basis. Your license gets suspended. The system's not out to get you, bro. They just catch you every time you're hauling ass down the road when you shouldn't be hauling ass down the road, right? People who are on their third DUI, you know, after the first two, the consequences, but you still decide to get behind the wheel of a car and not make it home before you get pulled over. You know, it's self-fulfilling prophecy, you know. So there are scenarios where you can have a life of failure because you design that, and that's not connecting the dots. But if, say, for example, I was talking to somebody who I was actually talking to somebody who was cutting my neighbor's yard, and he was telling me about his daughter was trying to go into like a dental facility, like dental assistant or something like that. That's the kind of job she wanted to go to. And I was explaining to him how her bachelor's degree had nothing to do with that job. It was like real world experience and who you know. So she's like 2 years away from graduating. So I told him, I said, look, this is what you do. You have your child start interning over there, shadowing one of the facilities in the area, right? And they can do it after school because the school, if you're in high school, you're getting out at like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Doctor's offices usually close at 5. So you can go to the doctor's office and follow the doctor around for like 2 hours a day, couple days a week while you're in high school and get all the information that you need from the doctors so that when you're going to college, and then you can volunteer. You can take out the trash. You can do whatever they tell you to do, mop the floors, whatever. You can help them lock up because just because it stops serving the customers at 5 o'clock doesn't mean the employees leave at 5 o'clock. And you can learn things from them when they're no longer servicing the customers so that by the time you get into college, you're going to college with goals and dreams and aspirations, and you're being backed by the type of facility that you want to work for when you get out of college. That gives you a network. They can show you other facilities that you can go and intern at if you got transportation to get there. And in college at 18, 19, 20 years old, you could be getting paid minimum wage to show up over there and do a little something after college, right? And with college, you work in the morning, get off at lunch, and you can go to work with them in the afternoon, right? And get those years of experience. The benefit from that type of knowledge is that this child can then graduate from college with a bachelor's degree and have 5 or 6 years of experience under her belt and go straight into the field with referrals from the people that she worked with, as long as she didn't piss them off along the way, right? So connecting the dots requires a backup, not just a backup plan, but an actual plan, not just, you know, we're just gonna wing it until we get to the next phase. When we used to play Super Mario Brothers, we had more than one option. We could take the tunnel and go through the sewer and then come out on the other side. We can grab a little feather and we can fly through the sky and get there the other way, or we can defeat every creature all the way through. And there was multiple ways to do it. Sometimes we would take the easy route. Sometimes we would take the normal route. Sometimes we would take the hard route so that we could end up with the secret level so that we can get extra stuff. The end point was always the same, but we chose different choices to get there. Sometimes we got there faster. Sometimes we got there slower. We never ran out of time, but we never got there at the same time every time. So no matter how many times you replayed the same level, it was a different outcome. And that's the same thing that we're doing with life. He says, what if everything in life is already pre-planned? Every decision, every action. That is only, he says, the earlier in life that you start working, the earlier you can graduate from life. Okay, so here's the option. Let's go back to your first question. What if everything in life is already pre-planned, every decision and every action, right? Hypothetically speaking, if we start talking about multiple dimensions coexisting simultaneously, and that this is going to be before we get into today's topic because we're supposed to be talking about stocks and everything. But if the outcome of each one of those lives has already done its thing, right? The life that you're currently living is a life of decisions that you haven't made yet. Now, you're going to experience the outcome of your decision. There's a 50-50 chance in every decision. And the reason why there's a 50-50 chance in every decision is because 50% of the time you're going to make a positive decision that positively impacts your situation. And 50% of the time you're going to make a negative decision that's going to negatively impact your situation. Each time you make a positive decision, you're going to keep going further and further towards a positive outcome. Each time you make a negative decision, it's going to be further and further towards a negative outcome. Sometimes you can make a negative decision in the past, forget about it, continue to make positive decisions, and end up with a negative outcome because that negative decision caught up with you down the way. You might say, oh, well, I was destined to get locked up because you made a decision in the past that you never got caught for. That's not destiny. That's delayed consequence for a bad decision. Okay. You might do some shit stealing off the job and eventually get caught and get fired for it. I was destined to lose the job. No, you were doing things you weren't supposed to do that led you to get fired off of this job. You might be committing fraud and you never get caught for the fraud. You do small scale fraud. Then you start getting greedy and start doing big scale fraud. And then they catch you doing a big scale fraud. And then they're going to put you in jail for fraud. Oh, I was destined to lose it all. No, you were making bad decisions that led you to your failure, right? So if the entire life was pre-planned and every decision that you're supposed to make and every action that you're supposed to take leads you to a certain level of success or even failure, the question is not what if it was already designed that way. The question is, what if you made a different decision? Just like Jonah in the belly of the whale. He was given specific instructions. He was supposed to perform specific tasks. And when he refused to perform the task that was already pre-laid out for him, he ended up in what we would consider a rut. We are no longer being the success that you wanted to be because you're not making the choices that you're supposed to make in order to reach the goals that you are trying to achieve. So to answer your question, if everything was laid out for you to be successful and you stop making successful choices, you're going to stop being successful. So Michael says, the earlier in life, the earlier you can graduate from life. Well, the earlier in life that you start preparing for your future, the quicker you can graduate from the struggle and find yourself in a position where you have financial peace and you have the capabilities to make more dynamic decisions because you're not overwhelmed with responsibility. When you're overwhelmed with responsibility, you have decision fatigue, which makes it harder for you to think and it makes it harder for you to focus, and it starts compelling you to make impulse decisions instead of making decisive decisions based on well-rounded information. A lot of the times you know that you have a decision to make, and you might have to just sit on that train of thought for a day or two and then make a decision instead of making that decision right now in the moment. So yeah, you can potentially graduate from the school of decision making in life, but you don't necessarily graduate from life. You graduate from your experiences in life, because the graduation from life is when you're dead. Your life is seemingly a never-ending task until it ends. Because I learned the meaning yesterday that even a pawn can kill the king. Yes. I mean, it is so ironically, and that's a good metaphor in chess. But I mean, if you actually are playing chess correctly, you should be able to check that king with a pawn in the smallest quantity of moves. So if you're taking way too many moves to try to get that pawn in position to corner that king, you're really screwing up your whole life, because in that particular dynamic, you're wasting a lot of time to try to prove a point when you could have effectively succeeded with way less effort, which is an epic failure. Yeah, people can say a win is a win, but if you win by unnecessarily delaying the process just so that you can get the upper hand. Like somebody who's playing Uno and they're sitting on all of the draw fours just so that they can do the epic slam at the end of the match. It's a lack of sportsmanship. It's a strategy, but it's a lack of sportsmanship, and it also is a situation where you're unnecessarily delaying a game that could have been over a long time ago, right? And when you do that type of decision making in life, you delay your success just so that you can have an epic outcome that people can look at and say, wow, down the line. But you're doing it to impress other people. You're doing it for external validation, because internally succeeding is what you're supposed to be trying to do, and that's not what you're doing when you're delaying the game, right? But yes, in fact, a king can be killed by a pawn, and ultimately a homeless guy can have more wisdom than a wealthy man. So you can't judge a book by its cover. Trader says even Machiavelli noticed that smart people were not necessarily rich. True. It's the people who position themselves to earn passive income or collect tolls, rent, etc. I agree with that. And I specifically encourage you guys to reposition yourself into a scenario of passive or residual income, because not everything is passive. A lot of things is residual, where you put in the effort to build that income and now you're just repetitively receiving that income. Now, Michael says people don't remember losers. You're not doing this to be remembered. You're doing this for your own personal success, your own personal freedom from stress and responsibility, your own personal stability. So if you're doing it for the sake of being remembered, then you're not doing it for it. Like I said before, it's external validation, which is a waste of everybody involved's time. Because if I'm trying to be successful and you're trying to be successful and you're delaying my success for your external validation, then you're wasting my time, which again would be bad sportsman in the game. And that's also just poor decision making in life. Trader says, in other words, the ownership of income producing assets is the key to wealth. Yes, sir. That is correct. That's correct. And every financial decision that you make is supposed to lead you closer and closer to income producing assets. Income, yes. Never sell your principles. That's true. You not only never sell your principles, but if you can buy and hold real estate instead of fix and flipping, generate you some revolving capital that you can reinvest in other places, and then you'll be able to find yourself in a position where you're less required to start over. Because whenever you buy a house, you fix it up and you sell it, the deal is done. Now you got to go back out and buy another house. Yeah, you can sell 12 houses a year. You can sell 12 houses a month, but you have to sell a house repetitively in order to keep getting money in. But if you bought 12 houses and kept them, the rent off of those 12 houses would sustain you to some degree. How many houses do you need to have under your authority for you to receive the quantity of income that would support the type of lifestyle that you want to have? That's a question that you have to ask yourself. Yes, definitely hold real estate. Even with the new laws that change, they prohibited big business from buying a bunch of land and buying a bunch of houses in bulk. But if you're buying houses one house at a time, it's not going to stop you from going and picking up that house. I wish they told me these principles in kindergarten already. Well, in kindergarten, you were supposed to be taught by mom and dad. So if dad's not around and mom doesn't know, then you're not going to know. If dad is around and dad doesn't know and mom doesn't know either, you're still not going to know. So because in kindergarten, the teachers are babying you with snacks and drawing pictures and shapes. And they're not talking about stock market investment opportunities, right? They're not teaching you how to make money for yourselves. They should be. They should be able to tell you how if you put your cookie up on a table for an hour, your one cookie will turn into 2 cookies, and that's called interest. They should be teaching you that in kindergarten. Michael says, build small cabins, rent them out for the weekend. Michael just loves doing unorthodox things like CDLs and stuff like that. Yes, you can build a cabin in the middle of the woods. Yes, you can rent those cabins out. Yes, if you find a location that has a lot of tourism, that you can turn over a really good profit off of this. However, you have to make sure that when you're going to get in the woods, that you are actually building the type of cabin that is actually self-sustainable. Because if you've got to pay for maintenance on this cabin, if you've got to stock this cabin up, this, that, and the third, now you've got the, because then you also have the problem that the cabin is not being monitored. So people can just break in and crash on the cabin because nobody's ever there, or stuff to that effect. Because people typically with properties like cabins leave them, disappear, and don't come back to them for years. So if you're trying to maintain this like an Airbnb style situation, you have to find a populated place that people want to go camping in the woods and stuff to that effect, and put this cabin out for people to be able to. So this is going to be cabin on the waterfront, cabin on the mountaintop, cabin on the in a hunting ground, cabin by the ski resort where people can rent that out seasonally and you can make some money from it. Yes, that would be a good way to go. You just got to do it strategically. He says, F mom and dad, school is 12 years of teaching your servitude. Or well, your parents are supposed to teach you how to function. And then what you don't learn from your parents, you reinforce with school. School is not supposed to be designed to teach you everything that you need to know to survive. You're supposed to get that survival instincts from your ancestors, the people in your household, the people in your family, right? The reason why they say it takes a village to raise a child is because a school reinforces knowledge, but the neighborhood outside of the school teaches you how to perform. And that's one of the reasons why you got crime-ridden neighborhoods where parents claim that they raised their children right, but their children are out there with Glocks, which is taking out their ops at a traffic light, because that's what they learned after they left their house, between their house and school. So it's not just the parents, but the parents are supposed to have heavy influence on your actual upbringing. He's saying that 12 years of school is teaching you servitude, which is slavery. Yeah, it is. They're teaching you how to go out there and be a factory worker. So if it works for me, that's okay. Don't need validation. Now he doesn't want validation. Well, so on a broad spectrum scale, Michael, I tell people all of the ways that they can be successful. Your ability to build cabins in the woods, and they're very low maintenance if you're building a cabin in the woods, because you're just going to cut down a bunch of trees and turn it into a little hut, which is fine. You put your little fireplace in there, some handmade furniture, whatever, a little bed set, box spring system, simple, simplistically, right? Doesn't have to be fancy because it's a cabin in the woods, right? Low maintenance, you can rent it out, you can turn a profit. The opportunity cost is how much money you make off of the cabin, and how often can you make that money off of the cabin, right? Because the cost of the cabin is upfront cost. How long does it take for you to recoup your investment? If you're building the cabin yourself, you might not need to think about money return, but effort return is money, is still a return on investment. Because if it took you 6 months to build this cabin by yourself, how many years does this cabin have to sit here before you get back the cost of your time? Right? So I'm not devaluing your observation of a cabin in the woods. I'm telling you that you can't just assume so when you come up with an idea, it's an idea in an isolated scenario. Okay, not a bad idea, just an isolated scenario. Now, I take that isolated scenario and then I actually build the bridge to that isolated scenario. And I'm like, look, cabin in the woods, good idea, but you still have to factor in its location and the ability to use it. Because if you're doing it for yourself as a hangout spot to be off the grid, doesn't matter where it is. Matter of fact, the further away from civilization, the better it is for you. But when you're doing it for profit, you have to take into consideration how likely you're going to make a profit. because that makes a huge difference. Because otherwise, you like, oh well, I done bought this $20,000 piece of land. I done spent $17,000, $20,000, $30,000 to buy this little hut or build this little hut. Now that it's built, nobody knows it's there. Nobody's using it. See, then it starts becoming a financial loss. But let's say that you had like 50 acres of land that had a lot of livestock on it. That would be good hunting grounds. You build like 5 or 7 cabins there. Hunting season. People are renting these cabins out so that they can hunt what is on your land. That's profit. There's the difference between the two scenarios. The cabin is a good idea situationally. Right? Trader says, I still don't understand why the schools don't teach everybody how our economy really works, because nobody wants them to teach how the economy really works. Most parents don't know how the economy really works, which is why they're financially challenged. You also have the problem of most teachers don't know how the economy really works. That's why they can't teach it. The top 1% don't have to apply themselves to anything, so they teach their kids, but they don't have to teach everybody else. Yeah, most parents are at work all day. You're right. I love making projects, even at my age. Well, that's good to make projects. You always have to have something to do, especially as men, because if we don't have a purpose or duty in life, then we'll find ourselves in a position where we're not satisfied with ourselves. And that could lead to depression as men, because we have to have a duty, a purpose, a goal, something that we're dedicated to on a regular basis, which is, again, why a cabin in the woods would be fantastic for you, because if you're out there every day building this cabin in the woods, you have a goal. And once you've achieved that goal, you have been successful. Then when you leverage that goal for profit, you can be building another cabin somewhere else while you're waiting on profit from the first cabin. And that could be your hobby as a retiree, is to build cabins in the woods and then potentially turn profit off of them eventually. Where if you're doing it as a hobby, you're not doing it for pay, then yeah, it doesn't matter when the money comes, because when money comes, that's like icing on a cake. You're doing it to keep yourself busy. He says everything has a overhead, including I included in the cost, right? But how much? Okay, so everything has an overhead, but how much is your time worth when you're including that in the cost of renting out your cabin? So I'm not worried about time. I'm creating wealth. How are you creating wealth if you're not worried about time? Land has to have a view or other things like fishing, hunting, etc. Okay, true. 55,000 acres of wood. Okay. America loves slaves. Yes, we do. We call them volunteers. We call them work release program, community service, internships, unpaid internships. There's a lot of ways to go with that. I'll work till I die. Not I, said the black guy. He said, it's not the money. It is the money. It is definitely the money. I'm not working until I die. I am working until I reach the moment where my money makes more money than I can make on my own. And then I'm like, fuck this. I'm not working no more, because I'm going to live off the interest of my investments. Speaking of, let's go ahead and start talking about these investments, because the market feels like a minefield this June. One wrong step could set your portfolio back months, if not even years. But while some people are panicking, a handful of surprisingly stable stocks are acting like financial bunkers. Now, I'm not just going to give you a list. I'm going to show you exactly why these specific companies can help project your wealth while others are scrambling for cover. We're going to dissect the autonomy of the bunker stocks, analyze the turbulent economic currents that we're facing, and then apply that knowledge to 3 companies that are built to withstand the storm. Now, this isn't about chasing fleeting trends. This is about building a fortress for your financial future starting today. Trader says the British tourists discovered during their trip to the United States that Americans in all 50 states make more money than the Brits. Yes, that's what we covered last week or a week before last, when Sterling started asking us a lot of questions about how to fix his life, uh, we were discussing that while poverty in America, you might feel poor at $30,000 or $40,000 in America. Americans, rich, wealthy is $24,000 to $30,000 a year around the world, except in America and maybe Hong Kong, because Hong Kong is about as expensive as New York. But ultimately, $30,000 or $40,000 a year is not technically broke. It is just broke in America because of inflation. The cost of buying things in America costs more than the money that you have in America. But if you had a $30,000 or $40,000, $50,000 a year income in America and you took that to another country, you would be perceivably wealthy. Right now, we were talking about what, $1,765 a week income, which is a little under $2,000 a week, which is a little under $6,000 a month income, is what the working class is doing right now, which is like $72,000 to $79,000 a year. You go to Japan or China or Vietnam or South Korea with $75,000 a year. That's wealthy status over there. That's barely scraping middle class over here. Okay, so yeah, all 50 states are more expensive than anywhere else in the world, and the ability to live in all 50 states would require you to make significantly more money than what you would need to make somewhere else, which ultimately means that we are inherently wealthier by design. We just have to spend shit tons more money for the standard of living that we choose to have, which impacted by lifestyle creep. He said the money to me has become secondary. Yes, because you're almost dead. So the money to you is going to be secondary. At 70, 71 years old, you got what, 10, 15 years left? As long as you have more money coming in than you have going out, you don't really care about what your future looks like because it's almost over. Those of us that's got 50 more years to go, we care about where our future's going because we've got a long way to go and we don't want it to be a struggle for another 40 or 50 more years. You know what I mean? And I respect the fact that you've made it to retirement and you're enjoying retirement, and your decisions in the retirement style is different from the decisions of somebody that's not in retirement, because I'm not in retirement. And my recommendation would not be the retirement style decisions that you're making for somebody who is not currently retired, for somebody who's trying to build towards retirement. You know, you don't want to invest in something that's not going to give you guaranteed, reasonable, if not fast return on investment if you're building for retirement. If you're already retired, if you're already done, you've already got a nest egg, yes, slow and steady, build up a cabin, take 2 years to build a cabin, rent it out to people once a year. Doesn't matter, because you already got yours for the remainder of your life. That's, like I said before, hobby for profit. When it's a hobby for profit, it doesn't need to generate an income. But when that is your bread and butter, when that feeds you, when that feeds your wife and kids, when that pays for all of your bills, if that's what's paying for your child support so you don't go to jail, that money must be guaranteed. And if it's not guaranteed, it is not a good investment. Well, I can't say that. I can say, well, if it's not guaranteed to the magnitude where it's not coming in on a regular basis, because the stock market isn't guaranteed. There is a percentage that the stock market could flop here, but the likelihood of that is slim. 80% of the time, the market should be producing something, right? And as long as you diversify, the majority of your portfolio should be successful if it is not clustered into one industry, right? So if you got 4 or 5 different REITs and one of those REITs go out of business, you still got 3 or 4 of them left. You might lose the money that was in one of the REITs, but all the rest of the REITs will pay the difference, right? But again, you know, it's about getting the money on a regular basis. And I just said that playing the stock market is not guaranteed. There is a possibility that you could lose money on a stock. There is a possibility if you're doing dividend stocks, you're more likely to get paid on a stock, even if the value of the stock diminishes. But, you know, everybody that's going into Tesla could go out of business one day. We never know. and the billions of dollars that is invested into Tesla could disappear with it. We would never know. But the likelihood of that happening is slim. So anybody who bets on Tesla is expected to have a thoughtful guarantee that it's going to be here for a long enough period of time for them to get a return on their investment, right? Companies that's been around for 30 years. If they've been here for 30, you're expecting them to be here for another 30. It's not guaranteed. Some of the banks that were here when the country was established went out of business in 2008. But the idea is certain ones are still here, like Wells Fargo, and others are becoming highly popular and more defined as a household name, like Bank of America and Chase. So again, when you're investing in these situations, you're looking at the observation that you want to put your money in places where your money is more seemingly capable of generating you a guaranteed revenue. And a guaranteed revenue is like what Steven said, hey, I'm getting paid this month from last month. Last month, he got paid for the month before. Next month, he's likely to get paid for this month, which is a seemingly guaranteed scenario. It's a revolving income that's coming in, right? The new Fed chairman already admitted that the only way to handle the massive national debt of 33 trillion is to grow the economy and inflate the debt away. I should probably cover a show talking about the national debt, because I think we were talking about one day how the national debt was supposed to surpass Social Security disability, and the possibility of us not having funds to support Social Security disability becoming a thing in the future, but we just don't know when that would be. Michael says on average 70 to 90% lost money on the stocks in the long run. Well, I don't know about that. I haven't seen the stocks on that. But in order for, he said, oh, just Googled it. It's the average losses. That might be. That might be. I don't know about that. I haven't Googled those statistics. But the thing, here's the expectation though. Out of the 70 to 90% of people that lost money, out of 100% of the people that invested, you want to be part of the 10 to 30% of people that's gaining money off of it, right? And then you also have to recognize that these statistics are not universal. So you have the loss of share value, which is considered a financial loss, and then you have the loss of capital completely. So if you're getting dividends from a stock that loses share value, as long as you hold that stock, the share value can go back up. If they count your financial losses year over year, you might have a dollar amount loss of share value, but you might have made 10 times more than that in stock value, in dividend value. So you could be taking massive, like for example, a stock that used to be $30 a share, that's now $2 a share. Anybody who had $1 million in stock in that at $30 a share lost 90% of their money, right? But if that stock is still paying the same dividends year over year, you're still making a shit ton of money. If you've got $1 million worth of stock that's paying you $120,000 a year, and even though you might have lost 90% of the value of those stocks, you're still getting paid $150,000 a year. So did you really take a loss? Technically, on paper, yes, you did, because if you were to sell everything today, your portfolio is no longer valued at what you started with. But I mean, if you put it up there for the sake of having possession of these shares and the income that you're getting from those shares is the focus of your standard of living, did you really take a loss? So we can't guarantee that every dollar is going to stay on the table, but we can guarantee that we can build ourselves up to a level where financial success becomes the norm. He said only the day traders. Well, see, that's going to be another thing too, because you have people who buy and sell stocks every day, throughout the day, where that's their whole career is to buy and sell stocks. And 70 to 90% of the losses that occurs from that can happen, because stocks don't just happen once a day. From the time stock markets opens at about 9:30 Eastern Standard Time until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time, 5 days a week, stocks are being traded every second of that time slot. So there are going to be 70 to 90% of people that's going to lose it, while the rest of us might buy stocks once a month. Day traders might be trading 8 hours a day, and they might lose 70 to 90% of the time. But the 30 to 90% that they do gain, they're making profits to keep their job. And the rest of us that are only betting on the market once a month, we're turning out a larger a return on investment because we're part of the 70 to the 30 to 10% of people that are actually getting money off of the bad decisions that everybody else is making. And that's why I give you all the information that I give y'all, because if we're going to be part of the 10% that makes money out of this situation, they can be as volatile as they want to be, as long as we walk out of it financially successful. Now, let's be blunt about these headlines because they are a mess. You know, we have ongoing debates about persistent inflation, seesawing energy prices, and a Federal Reserve that has everyone guessing. It's a landscape where even seasoned investors feel like they're walking on a tightrope. And this uncertainty is constant, barrages of conflicting data. This is designed to trigger your financial fears, and it makes you want to either sell everything and run or gamble on high stocks and hope for a miracle. Both are terrible strategies. The real strategy is to find stability when everyone else sees chaos. Now, the real strategy is to find the companies that don't just survive this kind of environment, but are structured to endure it. Michael says, I'll find some winners too. Of course. The more often that you try, even if you lose 8% of the time, the more often you try, the more often you succeed. So for every 100 attempts that you make, you might win 30 times. But while I'm only making 1 attempt a month, or maybe 5 attempts a month, because I'm only investing in a small handful out of the 17 or 19 that I put into the portfolio, I'm winning every time, because the loss that I'm getting, because I'm going to experience a loss, is a loss of the dollar value amount of the thing. 5% might come off, 7% might come off the share value, but I'm not selling. So the dividends that I'm getting is guaranteed. And while I'm taking that financial loss, I'm buying back into those exact same shares while they're 10% off, 15% off, so that when they do go back up after Donald Trump gets out of office, I will start seeing a larger return on my investment. How did a private company get a hold of our purses? We gave it to them. Lifestyle creep, just like we were talking about the other day when Sterling was here. He believes that the bottom 25% are victims of a system that's corrupt and designed to take advantage of everybody. And I keep telling them that it's just the bad financial decision-making skills of the bottom 50% of America. They do not trick us into giving them money. We volunteer it. If they say, hey, I'm hiring at $5 an hour, and you say, I'll take it, they're not taking advantage of the fact that you're willing to do the work of a $25 an hour employee for $5 an hour. Remember, capitalism is going to capitalize on the weak, the ignorant, the elderly, the desperate, okay, and the lazy, okay? So if you're desperate, you're willing to take less to get more money now, but you're willing to do more to get the money. So because they're willing to pay you by the day, you're willing to take $5 an hour so that you can get the work. But you're now doing what somebody else is paid $25 or $30 an hour to do. They might have to wait 30 days to get their paycheck, but you get paid every day. You're going to take that $5 an hour because you need money now. Desperation, right? You might short sell your house. Your house might be worth your house might be worth like $750,000, but then you might short sell your house for $150,000 or $250,000 because you need money now, right? You know, your car might be an antique car. It could be valued over $60,000 in the antique market, but you'll trade it into a used car dealership for the taxes on a brand new car because you need a functioning vehicle right now, right? Desperation. You'll make bad financial decisions because you're desperate. That's not the big business taking advantage of you. That is you selling yourself short out of desperation, right? Then we also have impulse buys. We want stuff that we like. We want stuff that looks cool. We want stuff that makes us look better. You know, we want to perform certain tasks that is going to be observed by society so that they can critique us and they can give us external validation. Nobody who says that I'm not doing it for external validation is telling the truth when they're performing an action that specifically is designed to get external validation. Because if you were doing it for the sake of doing it, you would be doing it in a way where nobody would see it. And if somebody saw it, they wouldn't care because there would be no validation there. If I was going around showing you different videos of me turning over a massive profit on an investment, one, you would be able to watch my money, but then two, I would be doing it for external validation. Oh, he knows how to invest. But I can tell you what to do, not show you a fucking thing, give you a blueprint in the membership. You take that blueprint, put it to work, and you come back and tell me that shit works. Now, the difference is I didn't get external validation for that. I did that to help you out. You didn't have to come back and tell me that you succeeded. But when you come back and tell me that you succeeded, I know. That's why I wrote it for you. I didn't need the external validation. See, that's the difference. So the major companies grab a hold of our purse strings because they do what we're too lazy to do. We have dishwashers because we don't want to wash dishes. We have vacuum cleaners because we don't want to sweep floors. We have washers and dryers because we don't want to do laundry. We have housekeepers because we don't want to clean up. We have nannies because we don't want to watch our kids. We have schools because we don't want to teach our kids. I mean, the stuff that we don't want to do in society, you know, we make technology so that we can fix that. The big businesses capitalizes on this. They find the pain points in society, the stuff that everybody's complaining about, they wish they didn't have to deal with, and then they create something to prevent people from having to deal with that. We do not have a positive relationship where our partner is supportive like a personal assistant. So what did they do? They created a personal assistant. Now we have our cell phone. Hey Google, hey Siri, hey Alexa, hey Cortana, and the automated system will help us exist in life where our romantic partner was the one who used to do that in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So since we can't count on human beings to be supportive, we now rely on machines to be supportive because we can't do this alone, right? That's how they keep track of our purse strings, right? And then with all of the technology that's coming out right now, they are now going to keep track of us in our vehicles. People are not going to stop buying brand new cars. I'm going to stop buying brand new cars. I will not put my money down on a car that was constructed before 2024 because of everything that I have seen so far. And knowing what I know now, that certain laws were passed in 2021, I'm likely going to stop buying cars before 2020 because of what I know now. And then when I'm going to teach my kids about not buying anything before 2020 because of what I know now. And if you do get something that is after 2020, you're going to have a chauffeur in that bitch, and you're not going to have any conversations in that bitch because your car is wiretapped now. I'm not dealing with it, right? But we have a system that is only designed for lazy people to throw their money away to stay lazy. It costs a lot of money for the convenience, but someone will build convenience so that we'll pay for it. Steven says, if I buy, I'll never sell a stock. No dividends equals no buy. And I did turn the drip back on to motivate me to invest more. That is automating the system, and it does work. So turning the drip off only allows for you to take money from one stock and put it on another stock manually. Leaving the drip on allows to reinvest in the exact same stock. So if you're investing in a REIT and you want to take the profits from the REIT and put it on Johnson & Johnson, or you want to take the profits from the REIT and put it on Shell, Chevron, and ExxonMobil, then you have to have the drip turned off. But if you're going to just get, let's say you want to get a bunch of stable stocks where your average portfolio is now operating at like 7 to 10%. That's fine. I wouldn't do it. I would do something more volatile so that I can outpace the S&P 500. However, let's say you got all safe stocks, right? Lower return rates, but you're doing a drip. Cool. You're going to get the growth. You're going to get the increased dividends year over year. A lot of those stocks might be deferred where you don't have to worry about paying on taxes on most of those things. Good. Once you put enough money in there, you're going to reach a point where the dividends are going to exceed your income, but the principal is going to have to be significantly larger if 3% of the principal is being paid to you in dividends. If 3% of the principal is being paid to you in dividends, for every $100,000 you have, you're only getting $3,000. So that means that in order for you to get a $30,000 income, you need like $1 million, right? That's the difference. So I'm wanting a more volatile scenario, wanting 15 or 18% return on investment. So for $1 million, it's $180,000, which means I don't need $1 million to have a satisfactory standard of living. $500,000 could give me $90,000, which means even after I paid like $30,000 in taxes, not likely. They're probably only going to charge you like $10,000 or $20,000 in taxes. But after I pay the taxes, I still got $70,000 or $80,000, which means I can go from a $25,000 a year standard of living to a $50,000 a year standard of living and still have a percentage to either travel or reinvest for inflation and growth, so that I'm never going to have to worry about my standard of living ever again. And I would have doubled my standard of living from what I was having before I started to what I have after I finish. So I can go from still owning everything, but I can go from stuff that needs to be fixed to stuff that's fully restored. The convenience of, and that's the difference in the situation that not a lot of people think about. Trader says the legislation will allow people the right to fix their cars. Yes, we were talking about that legislation that Donald Trump was talking about doing before, that giving people the right to fix their cars, but there's also legislation in there about the intellectual property of cars, which is going to have manufacturers putting stuff in the vehicles that's going to cost your repairs to be more money. So even if you can fix it yourself, if you've got to lease or not lease, but pay a fee from the dealership in order to get access to the codes to turn your car back on after you fix it, at the end of the day, the dealership is still going to get a cut. Because if I got to give you a password to turn your computer on, doesn't matter if you do it yourself or not. What matters is I got paid because you turned your computer on. They're just trying to get more money out of the system. Michael says, you don't know what you want until I create it, Steve Jobs. Yes, because the average American is specifically putting a lot of effort into keeping up with the Joneses and charging it to the Underhills, metaphorically speaking. So the next best thing that comes out is only considered the next best thing because everybody wants the new thing. It's like crows to a shiny object, and they're willing to spend a bunch of money to be one of the first ones to get it. Look at all the rave of the people that started pre-ordering GTA 6 in June when GTA 6 is not going to be released until November. They're advancing money to a gaming system for the ability to be the first person to play it. We could wait 6 months after it comes out and be the last person to play it. If the goal was to play the game and enjoy the content of the game, it doesn't matter if I'm first. What matters is the cost of getting it done, right? But again, you didn't know that you wanted it until they told you that it was something worth getting. And a lot of us believe what we're told from society instead of learning it and then doing our research and then validating and verifying, which is a weird way for us to not do what's in our own best interest, right? Trader says the big portfolios have an advantage that people can borrow against them and not pay income taxes. Yes, so that's what I'm trying to teach you guys to do, is to build your portfolio up to a big enough portfolio for you to borrow against. You need at least $100,000 in your portfolio in order for you to start doing stuff like that. You can't say, oh, well, I'm going to get $10,000 and I'm going to find somebody who's going to lend me $5. You need $100,000 or $200,000 in your portfolio so that you can borrow 50% against your portfolio. Even if you borrow 50% against your portfolio, if you use the dividends from your portfolio to pay off the debt, if you have $100,000, you borrow $50,000, you put it into your portfolio, especially if you put it into REITs where you're getting 20% return on investment, you can get an extra $10,000 off of the $50,000 that they lent you, and you're putting that towards paying off the loan. You could pay the loan off quickly because all money put towards debt, loans, stuff like that is usually tax deferred, or not tax deferred, but tax deductibles, if you claim it correctly in your taxes. Which ultimately means that if you made, say, $25,000 or $30,000, but you put that $25,000 or $30,000 on a loan, then they're not going to charge you taxes on that money, right? But if you paid the loan off and then borrowed again, you're expediting your ability to get the portfolio up there. Because if you're making $30,000 a year, you could pay off that $50,000 loan inside of 2 years. Which means you're actually adding $50,000 extra dollars to your portfolio like every other year or every 18 months, which is far faster on $100,000 to gain 150% return in 18 months. Even in a regular stock market, that is a fast growing portfolio. But that only happens when people use smart decisions and say, well, let me put it at $100K, let me borrow against it, let me put it up there, and then take every extra dollar I don't need to pay off that loan, and then take that, get me another loan. But now I've got 150K. So instead of me borrowing 50K, I could borrow 75K and turn my portfolio to a 225 portfolio. And again, if it's putting out 15% interest, I'm making well over $30,000 now. And if I was getting $30,000 the first time, I should be getting like 50 or 60,000 this time, which means I'm still paying back that 75,000 inside of 18 months. And again, year over year, you can continue to capitalize your portfolio so that you can fast track yourself inside of 3 to 5 years to having $1 million just by borrowing against the stone and paying it back and deferring taxes on it, or bypassing taxation on it. There is a way to get it done, but this is hypothetically in favorable conditions, because if you borrowed against the stone and then you have a financial catastrophe, you're probably going to take some of the money you borrowed and put it on a financial catastrophe. Then you got less money in your portfolio. You still owe what you owe. You're going to be paying the money back. You might not get it paid off in 18 months. You might get it paid off in 3 years. Doesn't change the fact that you exploded your portfolio, as opposed to just pennies on a dollar, putting $10, $20, $50 a month to your brokerage account. But the difference is somebody who's living from paycheck to paycheck versus somebody who's investing in their portfolio, borrowing against their portfolio to double down on their portfolio. That person's got more money lying around than the person that's living paycheck to paycheck. So if both people lost their jobs, the person with a massive portfolio could use their portfolio to pay for shit. The person who lost their job doesn't have any fucking money because they spend the principal every week. When the money stops coming in, if disability gets discontinued or whatever the case may be, they stop getting money. But if your money is making money for you, as long as the feds don't come and freeze your accounts, you will always have money. Now, before we get to our financial bunkers, we need to map the minefields. So understanding the threats is going to be the first step to building an effective defense. Right now, in June of 2026, a few powerful forces are pulling the market in several different directions at the same time. First, we're going to be talking about the ghost at the banquet, which is inflation. After a period of calm, it's back on the radar. The most recent data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics for May of 2026 shows the annual inflation rate, or CPI, ticking up to about 4.2%. That's a meaningful acceleration and a figure that keeps inflation front and center of investors, which is higher than when Barack Obama had it at 1.9%. Just want to throw it out there. A significant driver of this has been volatility in energy prices, which can have a ripple effect through the entire economy when the cost to fill your car or heat your home is on the rise. But it's not just what we pay for things. We also have to look at what businesses are paying. The Producer Price Index, PPI, gives us a glimpse into the corporate cost pipeline. The latest numbers show that for 12 months ending in May, prices for final demand rose 6.5%. That's a significant jump, suggesting that companies are feeling the pressure of rising input costs. These costs either get absorbed by the company, squeezing the profits, or they get passed on to the consumers, which can fuel further inflation. It's a challenging cycle. Now, this brings us to the second major force, the Federal Reserve. The Fed's primary weapon against inflation is interest rates, and its actions creates massive waves. The debate is no longer just about if the Feds will cut rates, but when and by how much. In fact, the narrative has shifted. Recent projections from the Fed's officials themselves suggested a higher for longer stance is gaining traction, which is why they didn't cut rates this past season, right? With some analysis adjusting their forecast and no longer seeing a rate cut as a certainty in 2026. Some are even beginning to discuss the possibility of another rate increase by the end of the year if inflation proves too stubborn. Though this is not a mainstream view, it is still important for us to pay attention to. This uncertainty has a direct impact on your portfolio. Higher rates makes it more expensive for companies to borrow money for expansion and can make safer investments like bonds more attractive, pulling money out of stocks. However, I want to talk about just a second though, with real estate investment trusts that are investing in mortgages, higher interest rates increases the share value of real estate investment trusts that are profiting off of loans. BDCs that are buying the debt of other businesses, and the interest rates is going to be their profit margin. Higher interest rates benefits those stock options. So not all of them will be negatively impacted. It's just the majority of ones that people usually pay attention to. Now, this entire dynamic creates volatility, fear, and makes investors question the foundation of their portfolios. Finally, we can't ignore geopolitical landscapes. Tension in key regions can have immediate effects on supply chains and commodity prices. For example, any disruption in major shipping lanes like the Strait of Hormuz can send oil prices spiraling, which directly impacts the entire economy. So, to recap, we have rising consumer inflation, surging producer pricing, and a Federal Reserve playing its cards close to the vest, all against a backdrop of geopolitical uncertainty. Now, this is the minefield. It's a place where high growth, high debt companies can get wiped out. It's an environment that punishes mistakes and rewards resilience. So, how do we build a portfolio that can withstand this? We need to stop thinking like a speculator and start thinking like an engineer. We need a blueprint for a financial bunker. And this isn't about finding stocks that will double overnight. It's about finding companies that are so solid, so essential, and so well managed that they provide shelter in a storm. Now, what does the blueprint for bunker stock look like? There are 4 non-negotiable pillars. And pillar number 1, an indispensable business model. True bunker stock sells something people need, regardless of the economy or the weather. I know Michael always tells everybody to buy into Depends. Depends is one of those diaper companies that makes diapers for adults, but you also can invest in diapers for children. So toddlers 5 or 6 years old, plus adults over the age of 50, all wear diapers. Not everybody, but all of those age ranges wear diapers. And regardless of the economy, those people need their diapers. When times get tough, you might pull off buying a new luxury car, but you're not going to stop buying groceries. You're not going to stop paying your utility bills or taking essential medications. This is called inelastic demand. Companies in sectors like consumer staples, utilities, and healthcare are the kings of this type of market. Their revenue streams are more predictable and less cyclical, providing a buffer against downturns. And they aren't exciting. And that's going to be the point. They're boringly, beautifully consistent. Can you add DHT Holdings and International Seaway? Hold on, let me see. He asked me, can I put it up there? Because I got a list of stocks that we were going to be talking about today. I had stuck them in here towards the end of the show because I was going to be putting stocks up here for you guys. Whoa, go all the way into August. So real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some key dates that you guys need to pay attention to. And then I'm going to answer Steven's question. Wait, hold on a second. Hold on a second. We're going to go here. We're going to go up. Dang nabbit. It doesn't do the scroll that I wanted to do. All right, so let's start with this. We're going to go from here. So we got some of those, and then we're going to go from July 25th, and then we're going to go down. And then we have these. He asked, y'all gonna be looking in the comment section like, what the hell just happened? These are dates and tickers and stocks that are coming up over the next 2 months. And then I'm gonna answer Michael's question. I mean, not Michael's question, Steven's question. All right, so before we move forward, you have your iShare US Treasury Bond ETF, which is the ticker is GOVT. Jinko Solar Holdings Company, that is a shipping company, but that's not oil though. They're JKS. Gold X Super Fund ETF is just like the S&P 500. It's just like the VOO stock that you grabbed. That one is DIV. Then you have Two Harbors Investment Corp, TWO. Main Street Capital is a real estate investment trust, MAIN. Armor Residential Real Estate Investment Trust, ARR. Realty Income Corporation has the O ticker stock. Investco QQQ Trust is a real estate investment trust. That's QQQ. Then we have Altero Group, MO. That's the tobacco companies. Ellington Residential Mortgage Real Investment Trust, ARN. Orchid Island Capital, ORC. Prospect Capital, PSEC. These are all real estate investment trusts. AG Mortgage Investment Trust, MITT. Essex Property Trust Incorporated, ESS. AGNC Investment Corp, which is AGNC. Then we've got y'all like, it's a lot of them. Yes. Again, we've got some of these are going to be reoccurring because they're monthly payers. But then you have your Exxon Mobil, OXM, Chevron Corporation, CVX, Armor Residential. Again, comes up This one, DHT Holdings. Let me grab this one for you. Oil tankers. Then we have Energizer, which is the batteries, ENR, Regional Management Corporation, Health Medication, Gladstone Commercial Corporation, I do believe is another real estate investment trust. Cord Energy Corporation is another energy corporation, but it is not oil. I think it's electricity. Then we have Shell. Oh, let me go down. Going down even further. And then this one. All right. Then we have Shell, SHEL, Johnson & Johnson, J&J. Again, we have Armor Residential, which is ARR. So we have Arbor Realty and then Armor Residential. So you have one that's ARR and another one that is ABR. Then we have some of the reoccurring ones because some of these are monthly payers. And that is all the ones that are in July and August. Now we also have INSW, I do believe is the ticker for International Seaway. So this should be the ticker for the shipping. I believe it's not the shipping containers, it's the shipping ships, the big boats that are shipping stuff. But DHT Holdings is the oil tankers. So I'll put that as shipping boats because off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what you call it. Those are the two that are directly impacted by the ships. The Strait of Hormuz are directly impacted by DHT Holdings and International Seaway. So you got the oil tankers that are shipping the oil, and then International Seaway that's shipping products. Those are the two that you were looking for to answer your question, Stephen. Now, let's get back to, let me find my spot in this because I covered a lot of stuff. And since I put that up here now, I don't have to put it up here later, which is good. So we were supposed to be talking about the 4 pillars. Let me see. So the first business model is going to be the indispensable ones, which is what we were talking about. Oh, wait, hold on. I think we skipped a little bit of stuff. Let me go back a little bit. All right. So indispensable businesses, fortress balance sheets, and commitment to dividends and wide moats are going to be the blueprint for the 4 pillars. Oh, so let me go back a little bit further because I didn't even touch on that yet. Threw me off, man, threw me off. Pillar number 1. Okay, so what does the blueprint look like? Okay, so first, so that we can get back on track here. Pillar number 1, an indispensable model. This is what we were talking about, true bunkers in the stock that can weather the storm. We talked about the difference between being able to buy a car, not buying a car, versus always being able to pay for healthcare. So pillar number 2, a fortress balance sheet. In a world of rising interest rates, a debt is a liability. A bunker stock is categorized by financial strength. So this means a strong balance sheet with manageable debt. It means consistent, powerful cash flow. Cash is the lifeblood of a business, and companies that push cash have options they can reinvest, buy back stock, and most importantly, pay and increase their dividends without financial strain. So when you're evaluating a company, don't just look at the profits, look at the cash flow statements. It tells you the real story of the company. Pillar number 3 is going to be a proven commitment to shareholders. A company that views its shareholders as partners is a company that you want your money to be backed by. The most tangible signs of this is the dividends. So I'm not talking about a company that just started paying a dividend. I'm talking about companies with a long history of paying and, more importantly, increasing their dividends year after year through recessions, market crashes, and high inflation. These are your dividend aristocrats and dividend kings. This track record demonstrates financial stability and a management philosophy focused on returning capital to owners. Pillar number 4 is going to be an unaccessible market position. So, a bunker stock is a leader in its industry. It has what investors call a moat, a durable advantage protection from competition. This could be a powerful brand, a massive scale that creates cost efficiencies, or a network that's nearly impossible to replicate. Now, this market dominance allows the company to thrive over the long term, giving them the ability to dictate terms rather than just react to them. Now, these 4 pillars, which is the indispensable business, fortress balance sheets, commitment to dividends, and a wide moat, are the blueprints. They are the criteria we will be using to identify the stocks that you're going to be needing going into July and August. So let's put the blueprint in action. We're going to run 3 different companies through this rigorous bunker stock filter. Our first shockingly safe stock is named, many of us probably know if you have been following along with the show's dividend rotation strategy and the massive watch list that we have. But its business model is so simple and powerful, it's worth repeating again. Realty Income, ticker symbol O. They call themselves the monthly dividend company, and for good reason. So what does Realty Income do? Simple terms, they are a landlord, but they aren't renting apartments. Realty Income is a real estate investment trust, or REIT, that owns a massive portfolio of standalone, single tenant commercial properties. Think of the building that house your local your Walgreens, the Dollar General, or 7-Eleven. Think about buildings like that, right? There's a good chance that Realty Income owns that property. Think about what happened with Red Lobster. The individual building, Red Lobster, was being rented out by somebody else. When they raised the rent, Red Lobster couldn't afford to stay, and Red Lobster went out of business, not because they didn't have a good product, not because they didn't have a good market base, but because they could no longer sustain their overhead because of the cost of the property, right? So let's run Realty Income through our 4-pillar bunker test. First, the business model. Is it indispensable? Absolutely. Realty Income tenants are overwhelmingly in businesses resistant to economic downturns. And e-commerce, then convenience stores, drug stores, grocery stores. People need to buy prescriptions or grab household necessities, regardless of what the market is doing. So this creates an incredibly stable and predictable rental income. Their portfolio is enormous, which is why I told you guys about it, and diversified across thousands of properties and hundreds of clients. So this diversification is going to be key. Their portfolio occupancy consistently stays high, recently hovering around 98.8% of their tenants. This is the result of a deliberate strategy to acquire high quality real estate leased to durable tenants. Steven says this New York rent stunt might impact some stocks. What do you mean? What stunt? What rental stunt are you referring to? Because you've got some stunts. Because one of the reasons why I gave you multiple real estate investment trusts is because they're not all localized in one state. A lot of these real estate investment trusts are global or at least nationwide. So, for example, situations like California catching on fire damaged the value of the stocks, where it went down like $1.50 a share. Because like Orchid Island was one of the ones that was almost $10 a share. And then after California burned for 45 days, it went down to $7 a share, right? So it was like $9 and some change when it started in 2025, and now it's like $7 or $6.50 or something like that right now. 18 months later, but they didn't go out of business or drop 50% in value. And probably 30%, because they dropped I think they dropped like 5 or 10% in 2025 because of California burning down, and then they dropped again because we went to war. But now that the conflict is seemingly considered to be over and we're supposed to be returning all the troops, we should get that $1.50 back. But what rent stunt is happening in New York that I wasn't aware of until you mentioned it? I can do some research on it, but it's not going to change where I put my money, because long-term return on investment requires me to weather the storm. I would assume that if they're doing a bunch of price hikes, or if they're negatively impacting your ability to create rental property, that might be an issue for expansion, but it's not going to limit our ability to retain the current income that's coming in. If they are restructuring the market to prevent big business from doing things, which is not necessarily what a lot of stuff Donald Trump's trying to do, would be the case, then likely that would slow down the market as well. So what was the rent stunt that's happening in New York? I can look it up if you're working and you don't have enough time to type it up for me. I can look it up and we can see what the issue is in New York. So then you also got to recognize that when something ridiculous happens right now, it likely has a long-term effect, not a short-term effect, and not always does it happen in a way where it devastates the market. But from what I found, short notice, New York's rent crisis right now is an affordability and supply crunch. Rent has hit record highs. Most tenants are spending far more than the recommended share of their income on housing, and even affordable and rent stabilized stock is under severe financial strains. So I was watching the stock market stay stable, but this is interesting news. Current rent levels, you have the median asking rent citywide and cost to be no more than 30% of income for the median renter household, about $70,000 a year. So in Manhattan, the median rent reached about $5,000 per month in early 2026. In Brooklyn, it was roughly $4,296, according to the 2026 rental market reports. Citywide, the median asking price for a one-bedroom apartment is roughly $3,785, with Brooklyn around $300 and the Bronx over $3,100. Qualifying a typical one under the 40x rent rule now often requires $150,000 to $180,000 in income. Damn. Tenants' burden and displacement is happening because over half of New York City's renters are rent burden, meaning that they spend more than 30% of their income on housing. Nearly 30% spend more than half their income just on rent. The average American spends 68% on rent alone. But the cost pressure is pushing many households, especially families with younger children and lower income Black and Hispanic residents, out of the city, which is called gentrification, as documented in a 2024 Fiscal Policy Institution study. City leaders, including Mayor Zohran Mamdani, are as increasingly impossible to find an affordable home or build a dignified life in New York City without very high earnings. Rent stabilized units and the freeze is occurring because nearly 1 million 1 million apartments in New York are rent stabilized, and the rent guidelines board recently voted a 0% increase, which is a historic rent freeze for both 1 year and 2 year leases. The freeze responds to testimony that income has not kept pace with rising rents, but it also creates tension. Operating costs for rent stabilized buildings have risen above 20% since 2020, while rents rose only 11%, leaving many buildings under financial strain, and that's going to lead to lack of maintenance and low quality housing situations. Landlord stress and rental collections is another issue. In affordable and rent regulated housing, rent collection rates remain below pre-pandemic norms. Some analysis show collections dropping to about 89% on average, with a growing share of projects seeing severely troubled collection rates under 80%, meaning nobody's paying their rent or very few people are paying their rent. At the same time, expenses such as property insurance and other operating costs have ballooned, which pushes the affordable housing system to its limits and threatens the stability of lower cost units. Because housing court backlogs can stretch the case for months and even years, non-payment and enforcement dynamics, and another layer of instability to the system to make this harder. There's structural shortages and policy responses because the underlying driver is a long running structural shortage of housing for decades. New York City has not built enough new homes, which has driven up both rents and home prices. The city describes the affordable housing shortage as the single largest driver of the affordability crisis and is pursuing initiatives they're pursuing initiatives to build and preserve around 400,000 affordable units over the next decade. There's a new policy that has efforts to include speed reforms to accelerate environmental review, permitting, and lease up to cut development timelines by up to 2 years, and a block by block initiative to increase low cost housing. Now, that is going to tie into what Donald Trump was doing earlier this year when I told y'all that he has changed the laws preventing big business from buying up all of the properties and then pre-constructed properties and then rent them out to the tenants at high prices, forcing at least a 30-day delay where single family home buyers can purchase those properties before big business swoops in and comes and gets it. They also restricted funding opportunities from the government where big business cannot buy up a whole neighborhood and then use government funds to get it. Instead, they can do whatever they want to do with their own money out of their own pocket. But if they're utilizing government funds, it's one house at a time, which slows down big businesses' ability to buy everything, which also leads us to the dynamic where Donald Trump is encouraging big business to build more houses because, as I understand it, we have several million houses nationwide. I want to say anywhere between 3 million and I think it's 30 million houses. I think it's what it is that we don't have, and that demand, because there's more people than there are houses that need a place to stay. That demand is the competition for rent, which is one of the reasons why the prices spiked in California when California was on fire for 45 days, because the properties that weren't impacted by the fire were properties that everybody was willing to pay a higher price for just so that they could have a place to stay instead of living in a hotel. Right? Steven said a lot of buildings will change hands soon and corporations will acquire a lot of the New York real estate. Not as much as you would think with the new law that just came out by Donald Trump, but yes, all of the apartment complexes will change hands, and any of the small mom and pop guys that was owning those properties under an LLC and they can no longer afford to manage the shit are probably going to sell off to big business, one apartment complex at a time, so that they can get out of the real estate game, because it's hard to manage and it's too much stress and there's a lot of repairs. Everybody's calling, but they don't have enough money to cover everything because they're fixing the price of the rent. Now, how does that impact big business across the country? Not much. And why is that? Because they're raising the prices so that their shareholders could get paid. The tenants can't afford to pay the price of the properties. So poor people will leave New York, and New York will be a city of wealthy individuals, a lot like California. Poor people will have to relocate to states that are cheaper, like Kentucky or Tennessee or Arkansas, where you might be able to find rent for a 3 or 4 bedroom house for $2,500 a month. You might be able to find you a property over there for like $150,000 a month for a 5 bedroom house on an acre of land, where in New York, you might be able to find a condo for $250,000, which might be a 2 bedroom condo, right? Which is a deed to an apartment. I just want you to understand that a condo is a deed to an apartment that you own. But that's equivalent to getting a fucking HOA because you own the inside of the apartment, not the upstairs, not the downstairs, and not the guys on the opposite walls, not the one behind you, not the parking lot, not the wall outside of your building, not the grass, none of that stuff, just the unit itself. So you still got to pay for maintenance. You still got to you still got to deal with the laws and rules and regulations of the property, just like an HOA, but you own it. And your mortgage might be significantly cheaper than everybody else's rent. But yeah, this is going to be a housing crisis, and this is one of the things that Donald Trump had built a law for. Now, if the poor people have less money to spend on their rent, they have more money to spend elsewhere, which diversifies the income, which actually puts more money into the economy in ways that benefits the wealthy. Because yes, wealthy individuals do have their money in real estate investment trusts. The fact that real estate investment trusts have gone down $30 a share over the past 30 years, they don't have as much of their money in real estate investment trusts as they should. So you kind of want to fix the financial strain of poor people so that they can buy more stuff. This isn't about really doing for the poor. This is about doing for the wealthy by fixing the poor, right? not stopping them from being poor, just kind of making it easier for them to spend their money on other stuff. Now, that brings us to our second scenario, the balance sheet. For a real estate investment trust, the balance sheet is going to be everything, especially when rates are rising. Realty Income has one of the strongest in the sector. They focus on long-term fixed rate debt, which means that as interest rates fluctuate, their borrowing costs remain largely stable. They maintain a high credit rating, giving them access to cheaper capital than their peers. The business generates a torrent of predictable cash from rent checks, which they use to fund operations, acquiring new properties, and pay that dividend, which brings us to pillar number three, which is commitment of shareholders. Now, this is going to be where Realty Income truly shines. The company is famous for its monthly dividends, with a track record stretching back to its public offering in 1994. Through economic crisis and pandemics, Realty Income has sent a check to its shareholders, but they don't just pay it, they grow it. The company has an incredible track record, just like Erie, that Stephen had mentioned to me before, with over 100 consecutive quarterly dividends increases since its initial listing. This isn't just dividends, it's a statement of reliability. Now we have pillar number four, which is the moat. Realty Income's moat is its scale and expertise. A competitor can't replicate a portfolio of this size and quality overnight. Their long-standing relationship with major nations or major national retailers, giving them a deal flow others can only dream of. This scale and expertise creates a powerful competitive advantage. So no investment is going to be risk-free though. So for a real estate investment trust like Realty Income, the primary risk is going to be the interest rates. When rates rise, bond yields become more competitive, which can put pressure on a real estate investment trust stock price. However, Realty Income's fortress balance sheet and disciplined management helps mitigate these risks. Plus, their leases often include built-in rent escalators, allowing them to pass on some effects of inflation to the tenants. In a volatile June, July, and upcoming August, Realty Income offers a port in the storm. It provides a steady, reliable, and growing stream of monthly income backed by a portfolio of essential real estate. It is quintessential bunkers of stocks that you should probably put your hands on. Now, our second bunker stock comes from a completely different but equally essential sector, which is energy. The company is ExxonMobil, ticker symbol XON. I know what a lot of you guys might be thinking, an oil and gas stock. Safe in today's world? Yes, absolutely. But you have to understand what kind of company ExxonMobil is. If we apply our four pillars, you'll be able to see. Pillar number one, indispensable business model. Despite the shift of renewables, the world still runs on oil and natural gas. They power our cars, heat our homes, and are essential for countless products. ExxonMobil is a fully integrated energy behemoth. Now, this is going to be crucial because they operate across the entire energy value chain, upstream, finding the producing oil and gas, and downstream, refining it, which is different from other companies that might only do one of the two. Now, this integration provides a natural hedge. When oil prices are high, production is profitable. When oil prices are low, the refining segment often benefits from cheaper costs. This provides a level of earning stability that smaller energy companies cannot match. Pillar number 2, the fortress balance sheet. ExxonMobil is a financial titan, generating staggering amounts of cash flow. This financial firepower gives them immense flexibility, so they can invest heavily in new projects like massive low-cost development in Guinea, Venezuela, which are a key part of their future growth strategies. They can weather periods of low oil prices and return enormous amounts of capital to the shareholders. This isn't a speculative driver. This is a global financial institution that happens to be in the energy business, right? Now, the third pillar, proven commitment to the shareholders. ExxonMobil is a member of the elite dividend aristocrats, a title for S&P 500 companies that have increased their dividends for at least 25 consecutive years. Now, if you were trying to pick individual stocks, like the Erie stock that Steven told me about, if you found it on the S&P 500, it is highly recommended to hold. But if you haven't individually put it to your stock portfolio, you might be able to reduce the quantity of saturation to your percentage yield and still stabilize your the volatility in your portfolio. Right? Now, in Exxon's case, the streak has at over 40 consecutive years. The S&P 500 expects you to have 25 consecutive years. Now, this is a company that has raised its dividends through multiple oil price collapses and recessions. Beyond the dividends, Exxon has also returned capital to shareholders through substantial share buyback programs. The combination of a steadily growing dividend and buybacks demonstrates a powerful commitment to the shareholders' returns. Pillar number 4, an unaccessible market position. ExxonMobil's moat is built on a global scale. Technological expertise and infrastructures that is virtually impossible to replicate. They operate on every continent. Their technological prowess allows them to take on the most complex energy projects in the world. While the energy transition is real, Exxon is also investing in lower carbon solutions, leveraging its expertise in carbon capture and hydrogen to position itself for the future. Because remember when we were talking about the hydrogen powered fuel, that's going to be something. And I forgot which country we were talking about, or something like that, that was supposed to be bottling up hydrogen fuel and shipping it across the world as a renewable resource. Now, of course, again, there's going to be some risks. The most obvious is going to be the price of oil. Global recession would undoubtedly impact profitability. Geopolitical risks is also every oil company's worst nightmare, and it's present. And there is the long-term risk of the energy transition. However, ExxonMobil is not standing still. Their integrated model provides resilience. Their balance sheets provides staying power, and their investment in the future technologies provide a path forward. So for an investor looking for a bunker stock, ExxonMobil offers a unique combination of indispensable scale, immense financial strength, and a deep-seated commitment to returning cash to the owners. Now, our third and final bunker that we're going to be looking into is going to be a stock that is perhaps the most controversial, but from a purely financial perspective, one of the most compelling. We're going to be talking about Altria Group, ticker symbol MO, the parent company of Philip Morris USA. Now, many investors shun this business for ethical reasons, and perfectly valid choice. I don't hold those ethical positions. Our objective today is to identify shockingly safe stocks based on our 4-pillar framework. And on that basis, Arteria demands our attention. The indispensable business model is what we're going to be focusing on. And this is the controversial part. But the financial reality is undeniable. Nicotine is highly addictive, which creates very inelastic demand. While the numbers of US smokers has been in a long-term decline, the company has thrived through immense pricing power. Altria has been able to consistently raise prices on its flagship Marlboro brand to offset volume declines. Furthermore, Altria is transitioning towards smoke-free alternatives. Its on brand of oral nicotine punches is this is oral nicotine pouches. That is a key part of its strategy. Although it faces stiff competition in a rapidly evolving market, for better or worse, the demand for nicotine isn't going away, and Altria a dire in the United States market. Steven says, I used to smoke. I quit. Let tobacco pay me now. But to be fair, they don't make Newports or blunts, so I never paid into their company. The magnitude is there is competition out there because you had Camel Crush, you had Cools, you know, you got Swisher Sweets, Optimos, you know, there's a whole chain of cigars and different cigar companies, imports, Cubans that are actually from Cuba, not just called Cubans because of their size and their shape. There's a huge market out there. But while there is a huge market out there, this particular group, this particular company is the most dominant one. And it's doing a good job of paying its shareholders back. So while there is a large quantity of tobacco producers out there, and we actually have a growing market of CBD oils, CBD cigarettes, weed cigarettes that is out there, the fact is that this company has been around more than 25 years and has been paying dividends for the longest period of time. Camel Crush and all of this other stuff might have came out over the past 15 years or whatever, but they have not outlasted the quote unquote test of time with 25, 30, 40 years in the making of consistency with profitable returns to their investors. So while there are other companies that you and I never paid into, at the end of the day, you know, because I can remember back in the day where even though I didn't buy cigarettes for myself, I have bought some for other individuals. So, you know, I know I've contributed to the scenario. But again, my ethics out the window. Now, the fortress balance sheet and cash flow. And this is going to be where Altria's story becomes almost absurdly compelling. The tobacco business is cash generating machines of epic proportion. Altria gushes free cash flow, and this river of cash allows the company to fund its operations, invest in new products, and pay one of the most substantial dividends in the entire stock market. While the company carries debt, its ability to generate cash to service that debt is extraordinary. Management targets a dividend payout ratio in the mid 70% range of its adjusted earnings, a target they've managed to sustain for years due to predictable cash flows. Pillar number 3 is going to be a proven commitment to shareholders. Altria's Boosts has bragged about a dividend track record that puts it in the dividend king conversation, with a history of increasing the shares stretching back over 40 years, which is why we're talking about Marlboro cigarettes, not Newports or blunt wraps, because blunts just came out recently. They ain't been out 25 years. You know what I mean? I'm 40, 30 years ago, we were getting real cigars and breaking them up and taking the tobacco out of them and putting an ounce of weed into a real cigar. Now they get a blunt wrap that is the size of a used pencil, and they snip the tobacco out of that, and then they put a few grams in there where like 20 of these makes an ounce. Where back in the day, our ounce was like a nick. These days, an ounce is like $250. So times have changed. But even when accounting for major corporate spinoffs like Philip Morris International and Kraft, the company has increased its dividend dozens of times over the past 50 years plus. Now, this isn't just a policy, it's an ironclad contract with shareholders. The dividend is a primary reason to own Altria's stock, and management knows it. The dividend yield is often in the high single digits, providing a substantial income stream. And then in pillar number 4, an unaccessible market position. Altria's moat is a combination of brand power and regulatory barriers. The Marlboro brand is one of the most recognized in the world. More importantly, the heavy regulations of tobacco industries also serves as a massive barrier to entry for new tobacco companies. It's a virtually impossible position for a new competitor to launch a national cigarette brand in the United States today, protecting Altria's core business from new competition. The risks here are significant, though. The primary risk is the continued decline in smoking rates. Regulatory risks is also a constant threat, such as a potential ban on menthol cigarettes altogether. And then finally, there's going to be a risk that Altria's transition to smoke-free products won't be successful enough to offset the decline in its legacy business. Despite these real risks, Altria's financial characteristics makes it a unique bunker stock in a market searching for yield and stability. Altria's massive, well-funded dividends generated by a cash machine of business offers a compelling, if controversial, form of safety. Now that we've analyzed the why, let's look at the when. For those of you focused on income, having a calendar is crucial. So we put together some key dates. We put them up on the show earlier when Stephen had asked me about it, so that you can be aware of a variety of income-oriented stocks and ETFs over the next 2 months. I want you to note that the stocks that we put up there earlier today are expected or announced payments or ex-dividend dates, which you should always verify a couple of weeks before it occurs if you're trying to buy in, because you want to get that ex-dividend date roughly a few days to 5 days, less than a week before the ex-dividend date, because you start seeing fluctuations in the stock right before the ex-dividend date. If you can get it sooner before that, where you catch a dip halfway through the month, go ahead. But you want to get it before the ex-dividend date to benefit from the very next payout, right? You don't want to get it the day after the ex-dividend date or the day of the ex-dividend date, because you're not going to get a payment for 2 months, right? So out of that whole list that we went through, we had gave you the 2 months, and you're going to see that list in the membership. So if you are a member, that list is in fact in the membership for specifically July and August. And if you have been following along, you actually can take, because every month I give you the next 2 months. So if you go all the way back to January, you can grab January through July or January through August. And by the time we get to December, you can create your own calendar of which stocks pop up in which month. While the dates will vary, you will have the specific months that certain stocks will pop up on a monthly or quarterly basis We have some that are annual and a couple of them that are semi-annual, and you would be able to follow those stocks and then determine when you're going to go back and double down on some of those stocks. Now, if you've got drip activated, you don't have to, you don't really pay attention. You new income whenever you decide to add new income. But if you are rebalancing yourself manually, knowing when to put the money into which stock is crucially important for your ability to succeed in capturing the current dividend release if you buy it right before the ex-dividend date. So to recap, the key to surviving a volatile June, July, and August isn't to panic. It's to be deliberate. So just like what Stephen was telling me about what's going on in New York, you notice I didn't like, shit, let me go check the stocks. Nah, fuck that shit. I already moved my money around a couple days ago. I'm not going to move it again, right? When I get some more money, I actually just thought about it while I was talking to y'all on the show today. I'm going to put some money on that Erie stock that Stephen told me about. That way I got it in my portfolio. That's like the only change that I'm going to make, is that I heard good information from one of the people in my membership, and I'm going to take advantage of that. That's it. What happened in New York? Not going to change the fact that I got like 60% real estate investment trust right now, because I'm benefiting from the volatility. I told you guys, right now, while Donald Trump is in office, he is shaking things up to the fact that 20+% is certain real estate investment trusts that I told you guys about. You want to ride that wave while you still can. That's not, oh, we're going to hold this for 40 years. No, we're going to hold it while it's volatile, while it's profitable. When it stops being volatile, or when you reach your thresholds, then you can deviate away from it. But if you can get 20% return on your investment, if you can get $2,000 off of every $10,000 that you put into your brokerage account right now, do that first and then rotate out when you're more comfortable with your position or when it stops being beneficial, right? But you have to remember, this is going to be about you fortifying your portfolio with exceptionally high quality businesses built for this exact kind of volatility in the trading market. Now, we've looked at 3 distinct flavors of safety today. We've had Realty Income, the unshakable landlord generating steady monthly income. We've had ExxonMobil, the energy giant that fuels the world. And we have Alteria Group, the controversial but undeniable king of cash flow, funding one of the most robust dividends you can find. Each of these companies embodies the 4 pillars of the financial bunker: an indispensable business, a fortress balance sheet, an ironclad commitment to shareholder returns, and a widespread protective moat. They provide you, or they've proven that you don't need to take on massive risks to secure your financial future. Now, in a market like the one that we're in right now, maybe the most profitable thing that you can do is to be shockingly safe. So if you found this analysis helpful and want more ideas on how to build a resilient income generating portfolio, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel, hit those notification buttons, take a look at what we've got going on in the membership, because we're going to be putting a lot more information out about how to look for this particular type of structure. And I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments below, what is your go-to bunker stock right now? I know Steven's probably got quite a few of the ones that I gave him on the list, so I know what he's got going on. If you've got others that I don't know about, let me know. Is it one of the names that I discussed with you guys, or do you have another company that you believe is built to last? I read every comment, and I am curious to see what you guys are holding for the long term. Because, you know, I don't know everything about everything, but I know that I grabbed all of the ones that are the most effective for your abilities to be successful. Now, there are more out there that are relatively equivalent in being successful. I just didn't grab them all, because once you start crossing over 20 stocks, you start washing away or washing out your percentage yield, because you have your average percentage yield for your portfolio is going to be the average between your highest percentage return and your lowest percentage return. So the more stocks that you have that are 3%, while they give you a lot of growth and they give you a lot of share value return, it's 3% return. So if it's 3% return, for every $1,000 you get, you're likely going to get like what, $30 or 300. Well, yeah, because it's 3%. So yeah, $30 for every $1,000 that you get. Because 3% is like 3 cents on a dollar, which is $3 on $100, which is $30 on $1,000. That's not a lot in comparison to 20% return, which is like $200 on $1,000. So the difference between $30 and $200 is the difference between volatility and security. But if you do it an average, if you've got some stocks that's giving you $200 and some stocks that's giving you $30, and you average that divided by 2, you've got 20 plus 30, which is well, 200 plus 30, which is 230. You divide that by 2, and now you get like 12 and a half, which actually brings your average down. See what I'm saying? Just that right there brought you from a 20-something% return on investment down to like 12 and a half, because the average between the two. So if you've got, out of 20 stocks, if you've got 3 or 4 of them that's pushing 20%, and then you've got a few of them that's pushing 16s, and then you've got 7 to 10 of them that are like 5 to 3%, you start getting closer to the average 10% that the S&P 500 puts out. When you start getting too many stocks where you're doing the same performance, as the exact same performance as the S&P 500, you might as well just put all your money into the S&P 500. I don't recommend that because, again, you don't want to put all your money into the same basket. But if you're going to pick 15 really good stocks or 20 really good stocks, you want to kind of round it off around 20. If you go 25, you can kind of do that, but just know that you're sacrificing your return on investment by adding too many stocks to your already existing portfolio, right? But again, if you're trying to transition from volatility to security, then you want to add more stocks, like adding the Erie stock to the 17 to 19 stocks that we talked about before. You're adding that stock because you're going to reduce the investment in the real estate investment trust so that you can have more tax advantage stocks. But you're recognizing that you're sacrificing on the larger cash flow so that you can get more tax preferred stock. It's not going to wash itself out. The amount of money that you save on taxes is not going to be equivalent to the amount of money that you're going to lose on capital gains from the real estate investment trust and the BDCs. You're probably going to be losing 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 in income. So for every dollar you don't have to pay in taxes, it would probably be like $3 you would have lost in income generated from the other more volatile stocks. So to be fair, the volatility is worth it, even if you have to pay taxes on it, because through the taxes, you're still going to come out $2 more than every dollar of stock that you saved on taxes after paying for taxes. So it makes more sense to say, hey, let me get the volatility while I'm building, and then let me switch to the security after I'm done reaching certain benchmarks, right? You don't want to hold it forever. If you can hold it for 20 years, fuck, ride that wave. But if you're going to hold it for right now, while we're dealing with a volatile political environment, and then when the non-Republican is in office and everything stabilizes because they're not performing the way we would expect them to perform, in that stable market, we might not want to ride BDCs. We might want to ride something else. We might want to relocate from BDCs and relocate to something else. The fact is that while you can always make those changes, if you have at least $1 on each one of them in an ETF, you know where your stocks are, and then you can say, well, let me move the money back over here, right? But again, the only time you're going to want to sell is when you're up, because if you sell while you're down, you're taking a permanent loss. So I want you guys to always remember that this is for informational purposes. I'm not actually giving you legal financial advice. I'm just telling you guys what you need to do your research on so that you can know exactly what you're trying to get for your future. Because if we didn't have this conversation, you would never have thought to look into this. Is that I'm holding forever. If something else is better, then I will add that and keep what I got. Well, see, that's the thing. Even if you're doing buy and holds, for example, rebalancing doesn't necessarily require you to sell the real estate investment trust that you buy. You could buy $10,000 worth of real estate investment trust right now because it's beneficial to you. But when the market shifts and it's no longer beneficial, you're not going to buy anymore. Instead, you're going to keep what you have and rebalance all of your money to more stable stock. And the more you rebalance, the less percentage of your total portfolio is REITs, but the stock that you have in REITs is not going anywhere. If you had $10,000 or $20,000 worth of stocks when you was heavy on REITs and heavy on BDCs that was putting out 20-25% return, that $10,000 or $20,000 worth of your portfolio is still going to be there. But let's say your portfolio started and you built yourself up to $25,000 worth of stock, and $20,000 of it was REITs and BDCs. Then when you decided to rebalance, now you have $100,000 worth of stocks, and out of that $100,000 worth of stocks, $20,000 of it is REITs and BDCs. What that means is that you didn't sell anything, you just stopped buying it because it wasn't beneficial to you anymore, and you got that stable growth that you wanted from the other stuff. The historic and old school way to do things was to buy a bunch of things and then sell something to buy something else. The way I'm talking to you guys about it, tax advantage wise, is instead of selling stuff, you rebalance with a purpose. You, instead of having drip on 100% of the time, you turn a drip off, take the money from the portfolio. So once you get the email that says, hey, you got money, you're going to look at the drip. And you're like, oh, I got money. So let me take it and put it over here instead of putting it back in now. I was looking through Stash and I did not see where there was an option to pick and choose which stocks would allow me to drip. From what I saw, an all or nothing situation. Either all of them get dripped or none of them get dripped. I think with Charles Schwab, you have the ability to pick and choose which ones get the drip. So, but Charles Schwab requires you to buy the full dollar amount. So with the Erie stock being like $280 something, you would have to buy one full stock or not buy it at all. Whereas as long as you're ETF trading, if you had $5, you could divide $5 among 17 stocks and put like a few pennies on each one of them until you build the stock up to wherever you wanted to go, which is why I started off with ETF trading, because it's financially beneficial for you to put a little bit up there until you can get enough to put a lot up there. You know what I mean? But it requires that transition. Then I also found out that, it's probably a better idea to shift over to Charles Schwab's when you got like 10 stacks, because then you can get full dollar amount share values for a lot of the stuff that you're trying to get, and then start working yourself into full share purchases. Because again, once you have like $10, $20, $30,000 sitting in a brokerage account, when you're getting paid $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 a share or of dividends, you're able to now be able to buy that $285 stock because you got like $400 or $2,000 to $4,000. That's not something that you could do if you only had $500 and they were giving you $50. You wouldn't be able to buy another share of Chevron or another share of Johnson & Johnson because it's like 300 something bucks, right? So I want to make sure that you guys remember that you always need to do your own research. You can always reach out to me in the membership and I'll do a lot of research and I'll give you some information on it. And then you can cross-reference my information to make sure that you're satisfied with the information that you receive before you start making financial decisions. But never go on impulse, never go on the panic of headlines, never go on the trending news. Yes, you want to look into what they're talking about, policy changes and stuff to that effect. But you also want to look at what the market is doing as a result over the long term, what your expectations are, because short-term impacts to a long-term venture is not going to hurt you. Long-term impacts on short-term decision-making is going to hurt you, okay? Like I told you guys before, stay calm, wait 48 hours, then to make a move. Because this is a decision that you're making for long-term goals, not short-term gains. If you were doing a day trading, yeah, that market flip might piss you off a little bit. But if you're holding this for the next 25 years, this market situation, we're going to feel in 2048 the same way we feel about the 2008 market crash in real estate. Probably not going to give a shit about it, right? So that's all I got for you guys for today. I'm going to start by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. Ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I give you this information to make you guys higher value men, not just by improving your income, but also by improving your decision-making skills. I tell you guys on a regular basis to pay attention to the things in your life that is inside of your control that you don't like. Make changes towards that so that you can improve your life and then navigate around things that are outside of your control. Ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can make yourselves higher value women, but you also got to prioritize your 20 and 30-year goals, reverse engineer that to what you need to do today so that you can accomplish those goals. While focusing on those goals, you want to keep your eyes and ears open on a potential suitor with the right personality and characteristics. You're looking for the drive, ambition, dedication, motivation, admiration, and integrity for him to achieve his own goals. And then you want to see what those goals are, see if those goals match with your goals. Because while you don't have to have the exact same goals, if those goals are in the exact same direction, you guys can be successful in the long term because you're looking for long-term satisfaction, not short-term gratification. So I want to give a special shout out to Steven, FX Trader, OG Kicks, Michael, and Omni81, Red Voice, Danny Steffen. I really appreciate you guys for coming to the show. Special shout out to Daniel Barris. Also, he's always diving in at the oddest times. If I make it in, he makes it in too. So I want to thank you guys for coming to the show. Then everybody else, I want to thank y'all for coming. I'm your host, Xander. We're here on This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. I will be seeing you guys, preferably tomorrow night, where we get this internet situation together. We might start closer to the on-time factor, but we'll see. Either way, you guys have a good night.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. Standing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground.